Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So I am finally back home, so the mic quality is back to its normal state, but for this video we'll be going over the biggest changes already on the PvE server for patch 9.9. There is quite a bit to go over, but as usual this video will be made in collaboration and edited by Pro Guides. It's a website that helps you improve your overall League of Legends gameplay and knowledge. They are free now completely, so check out the link below. But as usual, if you end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit that like button, but let's just jump right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be a new visual or rework for a bunch of champions that Riot is releasing either this patch or the patch after. The champions are Ashe, Blitzcrank, Caitlyn, Jax, plus a sound effects update for Renekton. So all of these champions except for Renekton, except for the sound of course for him, will have completely new looking abilities. Obviously the abilities themselves haven't changed, but they all look so new to the point where honestly it almost seems like they did change. But regardless, all of them look absolutely stunning. Now you can see here Ashe, Blitzcrank, Caitlyn, and of course Jax. All of them look much better and much more up to date with how current League of Legends champions released look like. Next up, we're going to be going over some new changes coming over regarding MSI. First of all, we have some very small map accents on Summoner's Rift, which always happen whenever MSI is around the corner. We have some new loot coming out as well, such as the MSI 2019 orbs and a bunch of other stuff as well. And we also have 4 new emotes coming out that's called kind of the 4 new trials, right? Where it's going to be called the Council, the United, the Faceless, and the Warband. Again, all of this is for MSI, and I believe these will be related to some MSI missions that will come out. But that's just completely my guess, as I'm not 100% sure. Moving along, I also want to talk about some pretty big changes coming over to the jungle. Now this will hit either next patch or the patch after 9.10, but let's go over it anyways. This is going to change how jungle is played by quite a bit, because what they're doing is they're changing the early jungle lane dependence. A very quick kind of TLDR is the fact that, well, they're now moving the Scuttlecrab spawn duration by about 1.5 minutes forward. The big reason for this is the fact that, well, they currently aren't liking how junglers and mid laners are essentially forced to interact essentially around level 2, right? That's way too early, especially for mid laners, and it almost forces the mid lane meta to be revolved around champions that can work very well, level 2 or maybe level 3, just to fight in those Scuttlecrab early game fights, which really isn't all that healthy. So not only is this going to change the way mid lane is played, which is I think better for the most part, but this is heavily going to be changed the way jungle is played, because now not only do you not have to pick jungle champions that can contest Scuttlecrab, but your jungle paths and routes are going to be substantially different. Whether it's your own route that you're doing in your own jungle and the way you want to do it, the actual interaction with the enemy jungler, or if you're going for counter jungling and different paths like that and ganking paths, all of that is going to substantially change. To where the change to the jungle itself with the Scuttlecrab change is kind of a small one if you just really think about it, but at the end of the day it's also a very big one, to where you can almost say jungle is getting a mini rework. They are also thinking of changing Aftershock, of course, giving it some good nerfs because this rune is completely overpowered. And moving along from this, let's talk about the actual changes to champions themselves, starting off with a mini rework coming over to Aatrox. Now if you haven't seen it yet, I actually do have a full gameplay on the PvE server playing this new Aatrox, so check that out if you haven't. But the changes are as follows. His movement speed and HP 5 have both been lowered, but moving on to his passive, no longer does it have the OP Grievous Wounds effects on it anymore that reduces healing and shielding. Instead, now Aatrox heals for the bonus damage dealt by his passive. On top of this, the bonus damage has actually been slightly lowered, and the cooldown has actually been lowered by 10 seconds, which means you can harass with it more often in teamfights and of course the laning phase. The cooldown reducing effect has been changed, and the attack frame has also been adjusted to more closely match other basic attacks. Moving along to his Q ability, the damage has been increased on this ability as you rank it up, which is fantastic for Aatrox. The cooldown has also been changed to being a little bit higher rank 1, but a lot less rank 5. And the max time between casts has also been lowered by a second. Following this, his W's slow change has now been changed to being 25% period, as opposed to starting at 15 rank 1 and going up to 35% rank 5, and the cooldown has also been increased at the earlier ranks. His E ability no longer grants attack damage for 1.5 seconds, the passive healing source has been changed from physical damage to champions only to now being non-periodic damage to champions only, And the cooldown on this ability has also been lowered by 1 second at every rank. But moving over to his ultimate, now this one is getting the biggest changes, right? So no longer does it have the revive as a baseline for World Ender effect, no longer does it give you bonus movement speed on cast and while out of combat with champions, and no longer does it fear allied minions. Instead now, it gives him up to 100% movement speed decaying over World Ender's duration, which I think is even better. Aatrox now heals up to 100% increased healing during World Ender's effect, which is disgusting with his passive, his E, and of course, Spirit Visage. And here's probably the biggest change of them all. On takedown, which is a kill and or assist, you extend World Ender's duration, which is his ultimate, by 5 seconds. You refresh the movement speed, revive upon taking lethal damage, which you don't, by the way. If you don't get a takedown, his ultimate will not revive you. And I believe it also resets the cooldown on his Q. So that right there is massive, because his ultimate now is essentially a reset type ability, right? Similar to maybe something like a Master Yi ultimate, maybe even a Katarina ultimate with her passive, or even something like a Vayne where it extends the duration. So in other words, his team fighting power has increased significantly because of this. So all in all, some massive changes coming over to Aatrox, so let me know what you think about them down below. But let's move over to the mini rework coming over to Blitzcrank's ultimate as well. But first, let's start with his passive, where the shield strength has been changed from 50% of current mana to 30% of max mana. Now, this has a higher chance of giving you a bigger shield throughout the majority of the game, so overall, I think it's a buff. But moving on to his ultimate, it now has a new passive effect that states the following. Lightning charges Blitzcrank's attacks, dealing an extra of up to 200 damage plus 20% AP plus 3% of his maximum mana magic damage. So not only is this much more reliable than his old passive, but it also means maybe some kind of weird mana building sort of attack speed on hit build on Blitzcrank might be pretty OP. The next change we'll be going over is some changes to Sorak. Her Q ability got changes to where now it seems like the cooldown has been increased overall except for by rank 5, but the healing has been overall changed a little bit to where now it heals a little bit more, but it takes an extra second to do so. The base damage on her Q ability has also been nerfed as well. And then moving on to her E ability, the cooldown has been lowered on this one, which is going to be a little bit annoying to deal with. The mana cost, however, has been increased as you rank it up, but the damage has also been lowered. I mean, it's the same at rank 1, but as you rank it up, it gets lower and lower and lower. By the time you get it to rank 5, it's 50 less base damage. Now these are good changes because currently Soraka's pressure in the lane and harass is way too powerful for the champion that she is. The next change is going to be some pretty massive changes coming over to Rakan, so let's just get right into it. Starting off with his base stats, right? His base HP, armor, MR, and MR growth have all been increased. However, his base AD has been lowered by quite a bit. So in other words, less damage, but much more tanky. Moving on to his W, the dash speed has actually been increased by quite a significant amount, so it's going to be a lot harder to actually dodge it. Moving on to his ultimate, it now has a 0.5 second cast time, which it never did, but he can still move during this cast time. But no longer can he use his W or his flash, I believe, during the cast time itself. However, with that being said, they now have put in a buffering system for his RW. So in other words, if you press W while in your R cast time, it'll buffer and it'll take it out and use it instantly the second you're able to. Moving along, let's talk about some changes coming over to Tahm Kench because he also has some pretty decent changes as well. Starting with his Q ability, the slow duration of this has been increased by 0.5 seconds, which is actually a pretty decent buff because that's a lot. The cooldown has been changed from 5 seconds period to now starting at 8 but going down to 4. The missile range, in other words the range on his tongue itself, has been increased by 50, so this man has literally a longer tongue now. And the slow has also been changed to being much more powerful rank 1, but then evens out being the same by rank 5. Moving along to his W, Tahm Kench is now slowed and grounded the same way when he eats an enemy champion, now when he eats an allied champion as well. So it's a lot harder to just take your allied champion and get them out to safety because you're moving so slowly. The mana cost has also been increased by 40, which is a lot, so especially early game you have to be very careful with how often you use this ability, but on the bright side, it now refunds 50% of its mana cost on devouring an enemy, so you can still use it aggressively, and in fact it's actually less mana if you use it aggressively, but a lot more mana if you use it defensively. The base minion spit damage has been lowered, and the devour damage has actually been changed from starting at 20 up to 36% max HP and damage to now being at 100 up to 240 base damage plus scaling off of less max percent HP. His E ability will also now heal him for extra HP from the percent of gray health. The damage converted into gray health has also been increased, so all in all pretty worth it, and the mana cost has been lowered to 0, so his E ability looks a lot more powerful. And last but not least, his ultimate. The range on this has actually been decreased heavily, rank 1, it's the same rank 2, but it's also much longer, rank 3. The cooldown has also been changed to where it's just longer, period. So all in all, some pretty significant changes to Tahm Kench. Seems like a nerf for support Tahm Kench, but maybe a buff for top lane Tahm Kench. Moving along, the Teemo mini rework is back on the PvE server once again. I've talked about it so many times to where I'm going to go over it very quickly now. His new passive is essentially his ult E that now stacks poison effects with his Q ability and other champions as well. So in other words, the more poison effects, the more powerful his passive is. His E ability is now a on command stealth ability. After 2 seconds, he becomes invisible. When he comes out, he still gets the extra attack speed, but he also sees much farther ahead whenever he's stealthed. And his ultimate just deals less damage overall, but he can hold more shrooms as ammo. Now let's move on to some changes coming over to the runes, such as Cheap Shot that almost nobody takes since Taste of Blood is just so much better. Well, now the damage on this has just been flat out increased, but Taste of Blood on the other hand has had the healing and cooldown both lowered. The heal has been reduced by about half, but the cooldown has also been lowered by half. Ghost Power also received a little bit of a buff to where now, on top of also getting the adaptive bonus damage, whether it's AD or AP for every Ghost Power spawn, it'll also give you that if your Ghost Power spots an enemy, so you can stack it up a little bit faster. Ultimate Hunter is getting some quick buffs to where now the CDR per stack has been increased by 1%, which I'm personally very happy about because I already take it almost every single time. Relentless Hunter is getting a movement speed increase overall, so it's going to be a little bit more powerful as well. And then you also have Celerity, where all movement speed bonuses are 7% more effective on you, and you have a 1% additional movement speed. Currently on the PvE server, it says 70% instead of 7%, which is a bug, so don't forget that. Transcendence is also getting a bit of changes to where the adaptive bonus has been changed from 1.2 AD or 2 AP to now being 1.8 AD or 3 AP, so some pretty good buffs. A little bit worried about this one because I think this will make it a little bit too OP. Scorch has also been getting some buffs as well to where now it just does 5 bonus damage because literally nobody takes it. And then we have some finally Aftershock Nerfs. Now it scales a little bit more off of max HP, however it no longer has bonus AD or AP scaling whatsoever, and on top of this, the armor and MR has been changed from 70 to 120 to now 70 only, plus 50% of your bonus resists. In other words, the champions that will actually use it effectively now are actual tank champions. You can't have someone like Silas, someone like Lissandra taking this and abusing it and making it OP. Following this, conditioning has had its armor and MR being increased by 1, and magical footwear, the free boots time has been increased from 10 minutes to 12 minutes, and the takedown timer reduction has been increased from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. So if you get a few kills or takedowns, it'll actually be the same, but it's gonna have to require you to get those takedowns. And the last but not least thing I want to talk about is going to be, of course, the new skin Conqueror Alistar, which looks really nice. But there you guys have it, all the changes on PvE at the very moment for patch 9.9. Already a lot of things to discuss, so yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, share with your friends, let me know what you think about these changes down below. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.